not left to refresh.
Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah. Jnanatimirandhasya Dhananjaya Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah. Namo Namaha. Ladies and gentlemen, and dear students, we are assembled online on the auspicious occasion of the 67th Foundation Day of Pragjyotish College. On this day, every year, the Pragjyotish College Research Unit organizes a memorial lecture on the hallowed memory of Pragjyotish College founder principal Pandit Tirthanath Sarma. This is the 24th lecture, and due to this unprecedented time, and for the first time ever, we are organizing an online memorial lecture. We believe that the listening community, an important stakeholder of Pragjyotish College, by organizing such annual lectures, serves twin purposes of the principal and at the same invigorating the academic atmosphere. Without wasting much time, I would like to call upon Sri Atanu Kumar Chaudhary, President of Pragjyotish College Research Unit, to preside over to.
Good afternoon, everybody. We are about to start today's annual lecture. Before proceeding, as you are all aware, we lost a former President of India, Pranav Mukherjee. We are pained by the passing away of former President of India, Pranav Mukherjee, yesterday. A man of humble origins, Sri Mukherjee was born on 11 small village of Mirati in Birbhum district of West Bengal. Sri Kamada Kinkar Mukherjee and Raj Lakshmi were freedom fighters. Sri Mukherjee was a powerful orator and scholar. He acquired a master's degree in history and political science as well as a degree in law from the University of Cambridge. On his professional life as a college teacher and journalist. Inspired by his father's contribution to the national movement, Sri Mukherjee plunged into full-time public life in 1969 following his election to the upper house of parliament. He was elected to the Rajya Sabha 4 times. He was a man of unparalleled experience in the governance and served at different times as foreign, defense, commerce, and finance minister. Sri Mukherjee had extensive diplomatic experience and had served on the board of governors of the IMF, World Bank, Asian Development Bank, and African Development Bank. Pranav Mukherjee assumed office as President of India on July 25, 2012, crowning a political career of over 5 decades. Sri Mukherjee was honored with Padma Vibhushan in 2008 and with the highest civilian award of the country, Bharat Ratna, in 2019. A prolific reader, Sri Mukherjee has authored several books on the Indian economy and on nation building. He was bestowed with the number of honorary doctorate degrees by different domestic and foreign universities. Sri Mukherjee enjoyed reading, gardening, and music in his spare times. Simple in his tastes, Sri Mukherjee was a dedicated patron of the art and culture. In his demise, we have lost a great leader and an illustrious statesman. And as a mark of respect, we will maintain a 1-minute silence in his hallowed memory. Okay, that will do. Thank you. The next agenda of today's meeting is that, as the President, respected Professor Vinay Srivastava, Director of Anthropological Survey of India, Kolkata, and the speaker of today's memorial lecture, respected Dr. Mukundakam Sharma, Chairman, Vangshadhara Water Dispute Tribunal and retired Justice, Supreme Court of India, who is going to join us shortly. Respected Jagadindra Rai Chaudhary, President Governing Body, Pragjyotish College. Respected Dr. Manoj Kumar Mahanto, Principal, Pragjyotish College. Respected Dr. Ranjita Deka, Vice Principal. Respected guests, family members of Pandit Tirthanath Sharma, respected members of Pragjyotish College Teachers Unit, respected members of Pragjyotish College Students Union, and my dear students. Today, on the 67th College Foundation Day, and many years ago, in the last century, in the 1990s, the teachers of this college deeply felt the contribution of this college's founding fathers. The brightest among them was Pandit Tirthanath Sharma, the founder principal of Pragjyotish College. Pandit Sharma was a well-known scholar and literature of Assam, having deep knowledge of Assamese and Sanskrit. Graduating from Cotton College, did his masters from Calcutta University. He began his career in Calcutta University in 1937 as a lecturer in MIL department. After about 12 years of service, he was invited by the then Chief Minister Gopinath Bordoloi to join the Cotton College as its librarian. In 1954, when leading citizens of Western Guwahati, led by retired Justice Holiram Deka, the first Assamese Chief Justice of Guwahati High Court, Professor Ashraf Ali, who went on to become the principal of Cotton College and DPI, Government of Assam, Deven Sharma, public activist, former MLA, and many other distinguished persons gave a high school at Bhoronamukh. After much effort and persuasion, the government of Assam allotted the present plot. Eminent literator Medini Chaudhary, in an address in our college, stated that this was a brick field and bricks from this plot of land was used to build the historic buildings of Cotton College at the beginning of the last century. And lo behold, half a century later, Cotton presented us our first principal, and the rest they say is history. Pandit Tirthanath Sharma, former president of Assam Sahitya Sabha, had his centenary celebrations graced by none other than the missile man, former president of India, APJ Abdul Kalam, on 23rd October 2011. Pragjyotish College is an institution which has completed many years, celebrated its Golden Jubilee and Diamond Jubilee. It has leading citizens who are its alumni. Raghavendra Deka, an alumni of the 60s, was one of the member of the scientific team to Antarctica, the first person from northeastern India. We had Devashish Roy, a member of the Indian football team. Kiran Sharma, an alumni and my student, is presently a member of the UGC committee. Pandit Sharma ensured from the beginning that along with academics, sports, and youth activity persist. Today, we are one of the few colleges which have all the wings of NCC. In the first freshers, I was present way back in 1988. Eminent educationist of Assam, Indira Miri, stated that she likes coming to such institutions because it provides light where there is darkness. It provides hope when all is lost. We are greatly indebted to Professor Vinay Srivastava for agreeing to deliver the lecture in the hallowed memory of Pandit Tirthanath Sharma. I personally know him, and he is an embodiment of a professor one expects to meet and hear his or her lectures in the hallowed precincts of an institution like University of Delhi. It is indeed a privilege to welcome you all to this annual lecture in the most trying time. Thank you. I now request Dr. Manoj Kumar Mahanto, Principal, Pragjyotish College, to give the inaugural address.
Thank you, sir. A very good afternoon to all of you. Respected dignitaries, we, the Pragjyotish College, stand for a commitment towards academic excellence and solidarity. It is a matter of privilege and pleasure as the principal of Pragjyotish College to offer my warm welcome to all the stakeholders present here in this virtual meeting today on the auspicious occasion of 67th Foundation Day of this college. Already completing more than 6 decades of its glorious existence, our college has made its humble beginning on an auspicious date, 1st September 1954, under the initiative of a group of visionary leaders of this locality, the first principal being an illustrious son of Assam, Pandit Tirthanath Sarma. Notwithstanding its name of ancient Kamrupa, students from all over the state have been nourished here and have excelled in the chosen areas of their own interest, both in academics as well as extracurricular accomplishment. The college has made exemplary growth from its inception till date. Today, it is not only one of the most distinguished undergraduate co-educational institutions in the entire northeastern region, but is also the college of first choice of many, with postgraduate programs being offered in subjects like SMEs, economics, tourism management, and geology. The college boasts of a current strength of about 113 accomplished faculties and about 3,500 students. The college is also proud of its very supportive administrative and non-teaching staff. The college provides a liberal, lively, and competitive environment enabling our learners to carve out a niche for themselves in their respective fields. The college is committed to providing leadership in the right direction for the time ahead in every aspect of human endeavor. The emblem of our college contains our motto, that is, Tejasvi Navarita Mastu. That means, may our study makes us illuminated. My dear student friends and distinguished guests present here, respected teachers, the whole world, as we know, it is a standstill since last 4 months. We have entered into the fifth stage of countrywide lockdown, which is still now going on. The normal teaching learning process has been disrupted due to pandemic COVID-19. The event semester that was underway has been disrupted midway. The asymptotic disease has made a debilitating impact on our society. The lockdown has brought work from home concept and maintenance of social distancing, etc. But where there is a will, there is a way. We live in a digitalized world in this knowledge century. We have in the meantime switched over to the online teaching and learning mode from the offline mode under these stress circumstances. This new mode of teaching learning has a different style and compared to classroom teaching. Here, our students get an opportunity to learn their lessons whenever and wherever they want. We can express our hope that the pandemic scare will soon be ceased to have impact on our lives and our society will soon be able to come back to normalcy, thus alleviating the suffering of all people. Our entire process of admission this time has been made digitalized or online. Friends, striving for excellence is our motto. Let us hope that our college will muster courage and yield better prospects so that we can gallop ahead with the new millennium, leaving behind a trail of excellence, not only in our own state, but also beyond into the new frontiers. We believe in all-round development of our students, apart from academic pursuits. Great range of co-curricular activities that has already been mentioned, and different discipline and the character building of the students. Pragjyotish College has a unique distinction, having its full-fledged National Cadet Corps units with 4 wings, that is Army, Navy, Air, and the Girls Wing. In addition to that, we have different extracurricular activities for our students like National Service Schemes, Red Ribbon Club, Bharat Scouts and Guide, and the Youth Red Cross Society. Every year on this particular date of Foundation Day, our teachers unit, that is PCTU, Pragjyotish College Teachers Unit, organizes a lecture by some prominent personalities of the country. This year also, they have organized this talk on virtual media. And we are lucky enough that this time we have got a prominent personality amongst us, Professor Vinay Kr Srivastava sir, who is the Director General of. He has given.
Introduce the speaker for today, Professor Vinay Kr Srivastava, MSc PhD, was a professor in the Department of Anthropology, Delhi University, till December 2017. He was trained in anthropology and sociology at Department of Anthropology and Delhi School of Economics, University of Delhi. He earned his doctorate and instrument as a lecturer in 1985. He taught sociology in Hindu College and was a teacher in charge of the Department of Sociology there. He was appointed as principal of Hindu College from March 2010 to 2012. While on leave from the Department of Anthropology, he taught courses on medical anthropology, with numerous honors and fellowships, being the highest rank holder in anthropology, All India Postgraduate Scholarship from 1972 to 1974, National Scholarship from 1974 to 1976, Smriti Kundadatta Award for being the best candidate in getting the highest marks in MA examination in sociology, Fellowship under the Faculty Improvement Program 1979, National Scholarship to Study Abroad, Government of India 1980, Commonwealth Scholarship to Study Social Anthropology at Cambridge, UK in 1988, Rashtriya Shiromani Award 2006 by Delhi Telugu Society for Distinguished Work in Anthropology, Postgraduate Research Award, University Grants Commission 2006. Professor V.K. Srivastava was appointed as Director of Anthropological Survey in the month of March 2017. It is an absolute pleasure to have you with us today, sir. Thank you for being with us. Sir, Otunu, sir. Otunu, sir.
Thank you, Srivina. I would now request Professor Vinay Kr Srivastava to deliver the memorial lecture. Over to Professor Srivastava.
Good afternoon to all of you. My regards and my best wishes to all of you. Honorable Justice Dr. Mukherjee K. Sharma, the Honorable Principal of the College, Manoj K. Mohanta, Dr. Atanu Chaudhary, other distinguished colleagues of the college, the students, the former students of the college, the former faculty members of the college, the attendees from Anthropological Survey of India, Dr. Tirthanath, Dr. Amitabh Dinda, some fellow anthropologists, Dr. Sita Kakoch, and several others. I'm really honored to be here. When Dr. Chaudhary, Dr. Atanu Chaudhary, was introducing his college, I was very pleasantly and also nostalgically reminded of Hindu College, where I started my, and later I became the principal. I was reminded of those days. Celebrates its foundation day on 15th of February, when I was a lecturer, and later on when I was the principal, and I had the honor of institution stands. I have found in my study of sociology that the students have a very to speak to on the occasion of the foundation day, and also deliver the 24th Tirthanath Sharma Memorial Lecture, Pandit Tirthanath Sharma Memorial Lecture. I always feel that these memorial lectures should be written down and then should be read out. This is in the fitness of the thing, and this is to mark the sacredness of the occasion. In fact, I wrote the entire piece, which I am going to I realize, for it is likely to be a little monotonous. especially in the case of a webinar kind of a presentation, I will just place before you some of the ideas which I have tried to develop in this paper concern. And this paper, which of course later on I will send it to Dr. Chaudhary in case you want to publish it, or I'll publish it elsewhere. This paper is a part of the continuing researches and the continuing academic engagement I'm having. I would like to submit here that why I have chosen to speak to you on the current topic. There must be some reason. Because I have been working on anthropological theory and methodology, areas which are highly esoteric, and sometimes they do not appeal to the common students and the common people. And that is why I have been avoiding a large number of webinars, because my area of specialization is very different. However, I taught at one time when I was teaching in the taught a paper on medical anthropology. And this paper introduced me to the twin aspects of health and sickness. And later on, the trinity was completed when the concept of disease was added to this. I taught it for many years, and I really became interested in the study of the mental illnesses, contributed a couple of papers on that, and also developed certain ideas within what is called the people's understanding of the mental illnesses, rather than the Western psychiatric understanding. So in contemporary times, what I thought was that let me bring all my ideas to understand this. I personally think, and that is why I would urge upon all of you who are with me today in this memorial lecture, celebrating the memory of Panditji. I want to submit here that we should always keep pace with the contemporary time. We should try to understand the contemporary time. And this understanding should be as close as possible and should be as empathetic as possible. Now, I think a good academician is one who tries to understand the present time, and on the basis of the present time, try to say something about what is going to come out, what sometimes is called anticipatory anthropology or futuristic anthropology. What is going to happen again? What kind of a thing is going to come? But as we know it full well, that happen in future, unless we know what is happening today to understand this. However, this time is very special. It's really very special. And this time is a time of trials. This is a time of tribulation. This is a time, where we are all concerned. It's a time where, some kind of a, and let me use this word, some kind of a natural experiment is going on. Natural experiment here, which is happening because of the forces of nature, because of the relationship human beings have with the entire biodiversity. And this kind of a natural experiment which is happening, this is something unique to our lives. In fact, many of us who are alive today, and I am also referring to people who today are in their 80s and the 90s, I'm in my 60s. So they all know it very well that this is the first time in their life that they are having a face something which has enveloped the entire world, something about which there is no exception, something which is with us at every time. Every morning when you get up, you read the newspaper, and the first is how many new cases have been reported. Now, India has reported, as you know, this morning, something like 36 lakhs and 80,000 or so. And the world is, of course, running into several, millions. So you read these, and then you try to understand what all is happening. The narrative of the pandemic is so common and is so vast and so mammoth, the narrative, that you have a plethora of information about it. Many of us may have seen epidemics. Some of the epidemics which were rather ephemeral. They came for a short period of time and then they ended. And we had some kind of a cure or curative strategy for that, whether it was swine flu or it was avian flu or other kinds of influenzas, other kinds of illnesses were highly localized. So there was no need for us to be bothered about it. In those days, if we wore the mask, we wore it not because we wanted to save us from the pandemic, but we wanted to save us from the infection, or perhaps we were on of recuperating, therefore we had to protect ourselves. And that was the reason. However, now the things are very different. And we also know that the things which we ignored earlier, like the epidemics which we ignored earlier, we cannot ignore now, because I go back to the original argument. It is a natural experiment which is taking place. It is something which is happening, and we are an insider. That's an important point. And an important point. We are an insider. We are looking at the same thing, being in it. And we are privileged to have an insider's understanding and also an outsider's understanding. So there are three things which have come into existence. Number one is situation of pandemic. Number two, vast narratives, not only in English language, but also in the vernacular, not only in the media, but also in conversation. Whenever people sit down and talk, they talk about illnesses, they talk about their experiences, and the of what we call situation of medical pluralism, that there are many kinds of systems which are existing and they are all impressing upon us. Particularly now, what has become very common and what is in vogue and what is called immunodrugs, meaning thereby the drugs which try to raise your immunity. In fact, I advised one of my students to undertake some kind of a short study on the advertisement of various products, for example, food or other, that whether they were focusing upon immunities which will raise your immunity, because the solace we find today is that in case our immunity level is very high, we to be saved from the pandemic, likely to be saved from the virus, we will be able to withstand. So the second is about the cure, and as I just said, that hit and trial method, various kinds of systems which are available, and impressing upon these systems. This is the time, in case you happen to be a medical sociologist or medical anthropologist, you are expected to study what are called the medical pluralistic treatment. What kinds of treatments come? In addition to these, there are supernatural cures which are also there. Needless to tell you, as a footnote, I will add that in many parts of the country, the corona has been deified, meaning thereby has been elevated to a deity, and the deity is being worshipped in the same way as smallpox goddesses were worshipped in Indian villages. So you find an all-round attempt to understand it and to deal with this. The third issue, after origin and after the treatment, the third issue is what is the impact of this on the lives of people? Something which is going to last for years and years, something which will be a part of, if you allow me to use this word, a part of the historical narrative. It will remain. Your children are experiencing it. I'm experiencing it. My parents are experiencing the situations of lockdown, the situations of being isolated, and we are also experiencing something which has saturated our understanding, which has saturated our thinking of discourse. I will not go into different kinds of discourses which have come, which I have addressed in other papers. You find, as I told you, that there's a plethora of narratives. Narratives not only for example, I am telling you my experiences, but also narratives which have been penned down, narratives which have been documented. You go to American Anthropological Association website, and there's something called Pandemic Diary, and look at the accounts written by different people who had a first-hand encounter with the pandemic. Some of them fell ill, some of them were nursing a sick relative, some of them were caught in situation where they had to be quarantined or they had to be isolated. Some had to undergo several tests, and so on and so forth. These pandemic diaries are of great relevance and importance, and tomorrow they would all be a part of the research material on which we shall be focusing. Now look at how the museums are reacting to this. There's something called pandemic objects, and the search for these pandemic objects, and people are preserving museum orientation, or those who tomorrow would like to hand over these things to the museum, they are collecting these pandemic objects, whether they are PPEs or they are the thermal monitoring machines or oximeter or quarantine tickets or the photographs of people being stamped with the with quarantine, you know, stamped with the quarantine, and so they are having a large number of these things just to understand how the pandemic was reacted to in material terms. Then, of course, there are people who are writing stories, writing poems on that. There are a lot of writings on the relationship of the state and the people, how the governments have been handling the pandemic in different parts of the world. And one of the observations which has come up again and again is that this is one pandemic in which each country is looking at its own solutions to deal with it, rather than some kind of an international, something at the international level which is trying to handle it. Each country is devising, is improvising its own way to deal with it. And therefore, we have to look at the relationship between the people and the state. Now, an important thing which comes up here is, and something which cannot be ignored by anyone, especially if one happens to be between power and stigma. Now, these are the two important things which come up: the power of the state, the power of the community, the power of the group, the power of the family, the power of the instrument. The power all over, a kind of what we call in sociology mutual steering mechanism. I give you an example. Suppose I call more than 10 people to my house for some kind of a party. Because I have my birthday, I call them. I have a big house where perhaps we can observe social distancing. They are all there. My neighbor might come and tell me, welfare association person may come and tell me that, look here, you are flouting the rules, and therefore you should not indulge in these kinds of things, because in case you fall ill, there's every probability, there's every proclivity that you will pass on the infection to others, and therefore you have to be cautious about it. So the RWA, the Resident Welfare Association, have been given another role. I have written about this aspect, and The same thing applies to other kinds of security guards and the other. In suppose you enter office without getting your temperature done, it is something which is not to be done. You have to be, that person has a power over you, display a power to control it. And second, what is happening to the individual? And I would be arguing as I proceed further that this is the time when you really find the individualization, a kind of individualization we have not seen earlier, where you emerge as an individual. You have to fend for your own health. You have to look after, forbid something happens to you, no one is going to come and help you. And I also know that in case I die, then I will be laid to rest in a grave, or I'll be consigned to flames all alone. My relatives, my family members are likely to be not there. This kind of what Max Weber, in another context, that was on Protestant ethic and the spirit of capitalism, where Max Weber used the term, is a case of phenomenal isolation. You are in the midst of a family, you are in the midst of a congregation, you are in the midst of a neighborhood, you are a part of a larger society. Nevertheless, you feel a phenomenal isolation within you, and you acquire a new identity, the identity of a corona patient or identity of COVID. I just want to submit here as a footnote. I like to submit, the name of a person whom someone who is well known. Type the name of the person who was diagnosed with corona and was hospitalized or home quarantined or home isolated. Just type, and you would find the name of the person, and there may be another entry which is called name of the person and then corona, name of the person then COVID. Now this kind of a thing comes up. One would find it rather demeaning, one would find this kind of a denigration, but that is a newer identity you acquired, or I acquired, in case forbid I fall ill. So this is the time which actually brings us face to face with the most difficult moments of our life, the time which I will later on, as I develop, I'll talk about fear which comes up. I have never seen in my whole life the institutionalization of fear as I'm seeing now. And this is happening with all of us. The only thing we can do is that we can talk about how to mitigate these kinds of fears which are built up, what kinds of social and cultural strategies we can adopt, how we can produce certain group, certain kinds of narrative, how we can produce some certain kinds of interaction by which we are able to combat the kind of phenomenal isolation which is built up. And I need not remind you that if you want to undertake this study, begin studying the people around you. I always believe, as a sociologist and as an anthropologist, I've always believed that you should begin studying your own family, begin studying your own neighborhood, people around you. And needless to tell you, this is a separate topic altogether, that how some concepts of social sciences have emerged from a concerted study of own family members. After all, charity begins at your own family members over telephone. Talk to your neighbors over telephone, and you would find some element of truth in what I am trying to place before you. So this age has come to be known as COVID-19 age. This age has produced vast impact on people. It is shaping our worldview. And in case we are sensitive, we can understand. You can pick up any institution and you see models, which is the new term for worldviews, how the cultural models are undergoing a change, whether it is religion or it is economy or it is education or it is play or even humor or wit. Now these are the things which are all being impacted by this. Depending upon the kind of interest you have, you can work on this. You can work on the corona paintings which have come, right? Especially in the tribal areas which have come. You can work on the kind of face masks which people have tried to make, especially the tribal people who have tried to make masks from the leaves. So there is a vast arena of studying because it is having some kind of an overall impact on all of us. Now come down to some of these very basic things with which I began. For example, the origin. Now, so far we have not been able to arrive at a consensus what actually caused it. The most recent hypothesis which is in the literature is that it is a multi-species assemblage. It is a multi-species assemblage, and this theory, or this hypothesis rather, puts forth the idea that it is zoonotic. Zoonotic means that it comes from animals to human being, and then it is from human beings to human being, and then it is anthropogenic, from human beings to animals. This is the idea which is coming up. So you find some kind of a cycle which has been built up. Some of the recent researchers are also telling us that the corona is passed down to cats and dogs, your domestic companion animals. And we try to look at the effect of corona on the animal. We also try to say that this should not lead to a demonization of animals, that tomorrow you start throwing your cat out of the house or your thing should not occur. But we have to face the reality, how this kind of a thing is happening, and how this infection, how this can be broken up. And this is actually, the realm of biology is so interesting. The realm of molecular genetics is so interesting. It will tell you how this kind of a thing is happening. And this is one of the most important discourses on corona. I have identified 4 discourses, and this is one of the major discourses which is considered evolutionary understanding of the whole thing, how the things have evolved. Look here, the argument here is that if human beings are evolving, the animals and plants are also evolving. There is an all-round evolution which is going on, and this all-round evolution which is going on, it is affecting all of us truly, and affecting all of us equally. Today, the conception is not the world as having only human beings. Today, along with human beings, animals and plants, we have lakes and mountains, we have glaciers and forests, we have a large number of other things. And I'm very fond of this idea to development economists, some of the post-development theorists speak of what is called pluriverse. And by pluriverse is meant that the word is not one, the word is divided into many words, and all the words are interconnected, one affecting the other. So in this context, what is happening is we are going back to the idea of origin. In this, animals and involved, and therefore there's this demonization which has occurred with respect to human beings. This demonization should not be extended to animal, should not be extended to other things. And also, this is the time when we have to think about it. As a matter of fact, 3 popular these days, and I'm taking these concepts not only from the discipline of anthropology and sociology, but they are also a part of the common and general discourse. The first concept is is that human beings have been responsible for the despoliation of the environment. Human beings have been responsible for the kind of problem which have come. And these human beings have been responsible for whether it is carbon emission, or it is the destruction of the environment, or the global temperature rise. Whatever it is because of our action, because we have not bothered about the earth as such. We have only been bothered about ourselves or the kind of life with what we have. We want to bring about a change in our lot, and this kind of a thing which is going on, this is producing a lot of waste, a lot of pollution. Now we are quite worried these days about the plastic pollution which comes when these coronavirus kits and the material things are being consigned to garbage. So what kind of a thing is happening at this time? These are really worries. These are real worries of art. We are really worried about it. This idea is Anthropocene, where the human beings are affecting the environment, affecting the nature around them, and whatever is happening is because of this. One of the I have in mind, one of the discourses is concerning this, that corona is because of the earth, the way in which we have gone about treating the environment, and absolutely no respect for this, and we are suffering. So I call this discourse, we are the sinner discourse, underquote. We are the sinner discourse, and we are responsible for this. Now, the second concept which comes up, which is related with this, is that this is the time when being locked down, being away from the world, realizing that we have to look for ourselves, we have to take care of our family, our environment, we have to avoid congregation, we have to be independent, we have to be separate, but together, as important for my survival, as integral to my survival as are the other things. Now we know it that in the last 27 years or so, 75% of the insects, they have become extinct, and obviously this has implications for the biodiversity. And you can see all around you. I when I look at the park opposite my house now, these days I don't find any sparrow, I don't find any squirrel. The only birds I find are crows and the pigeons. Where have all these birds gone? Where have they disappeared? Now this kind of a thing has happened because of my activities, and we have to bother about the things which actually were not in our cognition earlier. We never thought about them, and they are coming in a very important way. Now coming down to the third aspect, which is called the impact on society, the impact on us. The first thing which immediately comes to us is that what happens within the household. Now that's a very important thing. What happens within the household? There are certain practical things, and these practical rational things are a part of what are called the government discourses. They are a part of the outside discourses. Say for example, you must wear a face mask the moment you step out, and in case you happen to be having sneezing or coughing, then you must wear the mask even at home. Never discard them. You have to self, and also you have to protect others. These are what are the things which are a part, the thing which are a part of the outside discourse. But there's something which happen inside the household, and what happens inside the household is something which is worthy of seeing, And one thing which comes from the household has an external representation is a concept which is called stigma. And this is a concept which has acquired a new kind of meaning in the contemporary world. Actually, I think in the earlier times, stigma was largely discussed in the context of mental illness and was discussed in terms of certain kinds of illnesses which leave a permanent mark on the body. For example, leprosy, for example, psoriasis, and something which can be seen. The blemishes can be seen. But right now, the stigma is understood more as a process. And one of the important areas of research to which I have tried to attend to is how the concept of stigma has changed over the last 7 or 8 months. How this has changed. And we find that it is still carrying the same kind of negative connotation. The moment someone comes to know that the other person has to be COVID-19, the immediate reaction is to avoid, is to keep that person away. This is a newer kind of the moray of untouchability which has come up. And this may be ephemeral, this may be short lived. When a person is in a state of quarantine for 14 days, maybe for 21 days, but what that person undergoes, in those 15 days or so, in those 21 days or so, till he is pronounced negative. Now, this is worthy of study. Actually, Irving Goffman, who wrote one of the seminal books on stigma, a book which is still read, and these days it is being read much more than what it was read. Irving Goffman says that what we have the internal feelings of the person, what they actually feel, what they go through, the kind of practices which come, and the practices and the implications of these practices. For instance, if someone is kept in a room, the food is served in a disposable plates. Okay, the person has to clean his own room, his own clothes, have to be all alone at the maximum. Watch television or do some bit of reading or writing in case it is accessible. Perhaps many of the things may not be available in institutional quarantine cases. So that is the kind of experience which person have. Many of them. This morning I read a report of this kind of an experience, a report on this kind of experience by one of the former film stars, Mr. Kiran Kumar. Now, the first line is that social distancing is very good, but not social boycotting. Now, one would try to understand the significance of this concept, how this person was feeling boycotted, and how this person was reacting to social distancing. Now, these kinds of experiences which happen, they actually substantiate the truth. They substantiate the truth of a statement, the statement which comes in medical anthropology. And I have realized the power of this statement now. The statement is that the disease has the power to transform. The disease has the power to metamorphosize, has the power to transform the patient into an enemy. The disease has the power to transform the patient into a villain, a patient into someone who is to be shunned. So how the disease is transformed, how the whole understanding is transformed. And you can see how the body function and body responses are being stigmatized and how they have been transformed. It may be sneezing, it may be coughing, or it may be blowing your nose, how these become a different kind of a thing. Now, after looking at all these things which are happening today, if we move into, and I'm coming towards the close of my lecture, when we look into the historical material, which is right from the Athenian plague of 430 to 426 BC till the recent cases, if you may study, and although I am not from the discipline of history, and many people have not paid, many historians have not paid much attention to the history of the illnesses. These areas have been rather extraneous, but I'm sure in the times to come they will acquire a more central place. David Arnold, who is one of the important historians of how diseases spread and how they have been handled, he says that this is an important area to see, because diseases, they bring about an indelible impact. And of course, if you look into paleopathology, you're looking into the diseases which happened in the past and link these diseases with human evolution, you would find that diseases have played a very important role in the evolution of human beings, in the evolution of other species, and diseases have played a very important role in bringing about a transformation in society. If you undertake a study of the pandemics right from the beginning till now, even a cursory reading of these things will bring you face to face with the following things. Number one, that all these pandemics are supposed to have an extraneous origin. They seem to have come from outside. So one can conceptualize two categories here. One, the category of those who are disease nascent, and the other category of people who are disease saturated, and how those who are disease saturated, the impact upon those who are disease nascent, and that is how the pandemic spread. And you find this externality of causation. You find the externality of causation in almost everything. You can take up the case of Ebola virus, you can take up the case of Spanish flu, you can take up the case of plague, or any kind of illness. The externality comes, and this externality tries also to answer also the innocence of a group, that we were innocent, but outsiders came and they impacted on us. In fact, I was able to relate this in one of my write-ups. I was able to relate this kind of a thing to how, say for example, the outsiders are conceptualized in tribal communities. So, for example, if you look at the Jharkhand case, the outsiders are called Diku. And Diku are the some who have been exploiters. Diku are the some who have been villains, who have created the kind of situation, social and economic problem they have. So this is number one. The second is, you find in all pandemics a whole array of measures. The measures which were adopted, to handle this. Please don't think that quarantine and face masking have come now. They were there. In fact, if my understanding is right, it was in 1377 that the word quarantine started appearing, that isolating 3 days or so that the infection may not spread, or the face masking. You have a large number of photographs of the Spanish flu and the kind of face mask which had come up. In fact, this itself is a good area of study. So that's the second kind of thing which comes up. The measures which have been adopted by the state and the measures which have been adopted at the domestic level. The measures which have been adopted I just want to draw your kind attention to this. The measures which have been adopted by people after they recovered from this. Okay, and this measure could be anything. Now look at, I have found that many people who have been corona warriors, meaning thereby they have been able to win over corona, and they have emerged unscathed, meaning thereby they have been cured. Now these people who have been cured, what is that they are doing? My wife was telling me this morning that many of them are listening to the medical videos, especially of a doctor called Dr. K.K. Agarwal, and they are listening because they want to remain in touch with that. So the post-COVID situation, a post-pandemic situation, which come. The third aspect you find in a comparative study of all these pandemics is what is called fear. And this itself is an important area of research. How fear is built up in the institution, how fear becomes a part of our common general living, with the result that we are always in a state of fear, notwithstanding the fact that the person who may be sick may be our very close relative. The moment you come to know, the thing is of the individualization, you want to protect yourself. So you want to protect your own body, which is supposed to be non-infected, and from a body which is supposed to be infected. So this kind of fear which comes up, and it has a very important psychological and sociological relevance. Now, how we respond to this fear, and how we respond to the kind of situation which are built up because of this fear. And so, what happens as a fear? This is what the comparative study will tell you. It tells us about the division of the word into two, the dichotomy. The dichotomy is really interesting to work on it. The dichotomy of the inside and the outside, the dichotomy of the we and the they, the dichotomy of the self and the other, the dichotomy of the micro and the macro, and the last dichotomy is of individual and community. One is constantly interacting with the other community. There's some kind of a in some kind of a dialectics of these two things. And this actually tells us a lot about how individuals are being constructed today, how communities are being constructed today in the social science discourse. Because if COVID-19, or for that matter, any pandemic, if it is an epidemiological problem, if it is a virological problem, it is also a mental and a social problem, something with which we have to deal with, and something which has tried to produce some kind of a leveling effect. It has tried to create a world of the faceless human beings. It has tried to create a world in which no specific identity is able to withstand the pandemic. I'm immediately reminded of the famous statement, oft quoted statement of Mike Ryan. He was with the WHO, and he was one of the health experts. And one of these statements was that coronavirus does not recognize your ethnicity, it does not recognize your race, it does not recognize the amount of money you have in your bank. Hmm? It tries to look at all human beings equally. It can affect anyone. The person who is affected may be the king or maybe the poorest person. So this is something which is having some kind of a leveling effect. Now, why this fear is built up? Many people have tried to work on the causation of this fear. Why this kind of a fear is built up? Well, different kinds of theories have come. One of the theories is that it is a new virus. But certainly, as I've tried to tell you, looking at the evidence from molecular genetics and molecular anthropology, I've tried to tell you certainly coronaviruses are not new. They have been here for thousands of years, and if not for millions of years, they have been here. And there are some theories which even go to the extent of saying that some of the human beings in the past, they became extinct because they suffered from these kinds of pandemic. And the theory which is coming up is that Neanderthal man became extinct because of that. The second idea is that no one has any inbuilt immunity, and there is no cure. So you have to just look for the hit and trial thing. And then the most important thing being that it is the stigma, it is the blemish which is associated with this, and this is something which leads to the isolation of this. Now, this fear has many kinds of consequences. Actually, there's a theory of psychogenetic death, which is also known as psychosomatic somatic death, and it was given by Walter Cannon. And Walter Cannon studied the Haiti case, particularly what are called the voodoo deaths, and he tried to look at the sudden deaths, and he argued that it was because of the kind of mental pressure which was built up once the individual came to know that the voodoo magic has been exercised, the voodoo magic is going to affect him, is going to produce pernicious and nefarious. So, and the person in this succumbs to that. There's a description of a patient that once the person comes to know that the bone has been pointed towards him, because the voodoo shamans used to have a bone, and they would point the bone towards the person concerned. And therefore the person comes to know that I am being ensnared by voodoo, and the net result would be that his eyes will become glassy, his blood pressure will go down, he will not be able to eat anything, the appetite will just disappear, the skin will become very, very smooth, and eventually the person will die. So this kind of a fear and what it leads to, you find people committing suicide in pandemic. And this is not only the case now, it has been the case earlier. And this is the fear of being ill. And this is a kind of suicide. Some of the sociologists might like to work on this. There's a kind of suicide which is called fatalistic suicide. Now, against this backdrop, and this is the final point I would like to place before your understanding, for your scrutiny. The final point is that how we are going to handle this kind of a situation. Would we allow this to go on? Perhaps not. Now, two ideas have come up here. The first idea, which has been said again and again, is that we have to create institutionalized mechanism. We have to create mechanism at the individual level so that we are able to overcome the fear. And fear cannot be overcome by succumbing to this. Fear can be overcome the way in which Mahatma Gandhi did when he handled plague in 1904. Gopal Krishna Gandhi, in one of his papers which appeared in the Hindustan Times, he referred to Gandhi's article which appeared in Indian Opinion in 1905, where Gandhi prescribed a set of 21 things which must be done. And I would urge upon your good self to have a look at these 21 points, and you will find each one of them has a relevance today, whether it applies to the state or it applies to the individual. The most important point is that please do not run away. Gandhi himself worked with the plague patient. The moment he came to know, there's a story which comes in his autobiography. He cycled to that place, and he had a friend who opened up a private premises where these miners who were down with plague, they were accommodated, and Gandhi himself nursed. There was a South Indian doctor called Dr. Godfrey. He helped them, and they worked, notwithstanding the fact that they had the fear of falling ill, but they didn't stop. They just continued with their resolve. Now, I have found, personally, I tell you, I have found Gandhi's work on pandemics. I found this very useful, and this is something which is able to understanding this. The second thing is, and the last thing which comes up is that what kind of an attitude we have to nurture. What kind of an, may I request? Yeah. So, what kind of an attitude we have to develop, and and people who have written on this, they say that the fear of the foreigners, fear of the outsider, can only be overcome by by furthering, by promoting the ethic of affinity, love and affection for them, in the same way as you extend love and affection for the other. So thus the person who falls ill is not a criminal. The person who falls ill is not to be ousted. The person who falls ill is not to be excluded and excommunicated, because, and this is the idea which has been promoted by many people, that it can happen to you as well. In this whole idea of, which I just quoted, multi-species assemblage, that the virus comes from animal to human being, from human beings to human being, human beings to animal. So in this way, all are equally vulnerable. It's not that I have a privileged place and you have a less privileged place. No, this is not the thing. And therefore, how can you counteract xenophobia, which is fear of the foreigners? The argument is you can counteract xenophobia by supporting, by furthering the ethic of xenophilia. And xenophilia means love for everyone. How can you counteract biophobia? Biophobia means that how you're afraid of the other animals, the insects and other. This can be counteracted by looking at the biophilia, love for the other. Now, this kind of an ethic has to come, and for this, you can take examples from the people who, in fact, combated pandemic in their lifetime. And Gandhi provides a very good example. Although there's one enigmatic question which comes up, and I will introduce this by way of a footnote, that why Gandhi was not so vocal when Spanish flu came to India. Then Gandhi at that time, which was 1916 or 1917, that Gandhi did not write much on this, because the answer which has been provided, and I would refer to one of the recent papers in Economic and Political Weekly, this is by Thomas Weber. It says it was because Gandhi himself was suffering from an acute bout of dysentery, and also he was under tremendous moral pressure because he had helped the recruitment of the Indians to the British Army, the recruitment drive. And this was because of that Gandhi did not react to this pandemic in the way in which he would have otherwise reacted. So this is something which can help us in understanding. One of the things which I am really interested in conducting is to look at the different case study, how different ways in which the pandemic has been dealt with. And I want to draw, because since I am speaking to you who are from Assam, I want to draw your attention to what has come to be known as the Assam model of handling the pandemic. I would urge upon you to undertake, any one of you, you undertake a longitudinal study of the Assam model, the way in which Assam tried to handle the pandemic, having a population of, if I'm not mistaken, 3.5 crores, and how this has been able to do it. What kind of implications were of the mantra like prepare, prepare, and over prepare? What are the implications of these kinds of mantra which were given by the state, and how they actually created an impact on the people, or the four T's regarding tracing to transparency, how they have helped. So this will be really useful, and this is the right time to undertake this kind of a longitudinal study, so we understand how we have been able to handle the pandemic. Because with this statement, I would close that one should not think that coronavirus is the last pandemic, and one should not think this is the first pandemic. There have been pandemics in the past, and God forbid there will be pandemics in the future as well. Because I would subscribe to the discourse which looks at the evolution of the biosphere, evolution of human beings, evolution of animals, evolution of plants, and therefore it's a part of the dialectical process where this is happening. Such understanding, so for example, how Assam has been able to handle this, how Kerala has been able to handle it, how Odisha has been able to handle it, or how a small district in Rajasthan called Bhilwara has been able to handle it. These kinds of case study will be very useful. What kinds of strategies, what kinds of mechanism have to be used for this? I once go back to the idea with which I began. This is the natural laboratory, and this is the time we have to study, because we are in situ, we are insiders, we can look at the whole thing from outside. This is an opportunity to study something which is confronting not just the humankind but the entire universe. Thank you very much. I am really grateful to your college for this opportunity to come and speak to you, to open my heart before you, and also to look at the thing from the lens of anthropology as a discipline. I have lectured, in your college earlier, but I think that lecture was on archaeology and its relationship with anthropology. And I'm really grateful that you gave me this honor to come and speak to you. And I'm grateful to the Honorable Justice Sharma, and also the principal, and also Atanu Chaudhary, for giving me this opportunity. And if there is anything which I can do for your college, please do not hesitate to tell me. I am also a product of a college, and I have great affinity with the college where I served and the college where I was the principal. Thank you very much. Grateful.
Thank you, Professor Vinay Srivastava, for a brilliant lecture covering almost everything about the pandemic with an apt title, A Panoramic View of Pandemics. Professor Vinay Srivastava, we are really grateful for a valuable lecture and time spent with us. We request you to kindly provide us the lecture, which we will publish in collaboration with the publication hub, Pragjyotish College. The lead will be taken by the Pragjyotish College Teachers Unit, and it will be an asset for our college. Thank you once again. We are indeed grateful that
Thank you, Dr. Chaudhary. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I thank Dr. Mukundakam Sharma, who is very close to our college. He is the chairman, Vangshadhar Water Dispute Tribunal, New Delhi, and retired Justice, Supreme Court of India, who has agreed to be with us and share a few thoughts on his father, Pandit Tirthanath Sharma, and Pragjyotish College. I hand over the mic to Dr. Sharma.
Thank you, Dr. Chaudhary. I believe I am audible and visible as well.
Yes, yes, we can hear you properly.
All right.
Please go ahead.
Dr. Manoj Kumar Mahanta, the principal of Pragjyotish College, Professor Vinay Kumar Srivastava, the person who is at the center stage today, Dr. Atanu Chaudhary, Professor Ranjit Das, Dr. Anjali Devi, and all other participating professors and students in this function. I take pleasure in associating myself with this function in which a memorial lecture is being delivered in the memory of my late father, Tirthanath Sharma, who was the founding principal of the college, that is Pragjyotish College, from 1954 to 1971, when he retired from service. I could join this function only when it was halfway through and could hear the Professor Srivastava for some time, of course, on the topic of Panoramic View of Pandemics. May I tell Professor Srivastava that whatever I have listened to was very illuminating and thought-provoking and very timely. And I believe that all the persons who have joined in this seminar have enjoyed his speech. The subject is well chosen and very timely, a panoramic view of the pandemic, which of course is a very, in my opinion, is a psychological subject, and he has dealt with this masterly with the practical view to deal with it. My late father, Tirthanath Sharma, was an astute academician, for he was teaching in the Calcutta University initially in the Assamese department, that is the MIL department where Assamese was included. And then he went back to Assam, joined Cotton College, and thereafter established this Pragjyotish College in the West Guwahati in the year 1954. When this college was started, I was about 8 years old, and let me tell you that both the college and I grew up almost the same time, and I enjoyed my association throughout with this college. My father, I have seen him, the hard work that he had put in to establish this college. Initially, the college started in Sonaram High School as a night college only, but later on shifted to its present place, which was given by the government. And I have seen the professors, the principals, and the students giving their service, physical service, for construction of practically huts in that area where the college initially started. But later on, it grew with the time. It went from strength to strength. Now the college has been established as one of the leading educational institutions in Assam, and a very sought after institution, if I may say so. So that is how my father established the college, brought it into a limelight, and then he also was instrumental in establishing a Commerce College in Guwahati, which is known as Guwahati Commerce College and is a famous college so far commerce stream is concerned. My father was also associated with the Guwahati University for a very long time as a member of the Academic Council, Executive Council, and a member of the court. And he had helped in making of number of policy matters by the university. My father was not only an academician, but also a reputed scholar and writer. He had written several books, and he has won the Sahitya Akademi Award for his book on Benudar Sharma. But in my opinion, this is my personal opinion, of course, that his book on Auniyati Satra Buronji, History of Auniyati Satra, is the best which has come out from his cups. That Auniyati, although it says, the title says that it is the history of the Auniyati Satra, but it is so. But it is not only the history of Auniyati Satra, but also, according to me, is the history of all the Satras. And it also is a history of Assam, of the relevant period when this Auniyati Satra came into existence and progressed with the time. Now, college has, the Pragjyotish College, which he has established, played a dynamic role in arranging this memorial lecture in the memory of my late father. And I'm grateful to all the teaching staff and the students and the members of the governing body for establishing and holding this memorial lecture every year without fail. And as a matter of fact, even during this pandemic period, when there is difficulty everywhere and people are facing a lot of hardship, and I believe even the teaching staff also must be facing a lot of hardship in arranging this function. But I'm grateful to them. And I am grateful not only on my behalf, but the entire family of mine. And I thank all of them who have spent their time in arranging this function. And also I thank Dr. Srivastava for delivering this lecture, which as I said, was very illuminating and thought-provoking. It is, as I said, I had grown along with the college, but we had to part way when I got involved in my professional work, and therefore I was a little bit away from the activities of the college. But when I became a judge, I was invited number of times to the college, and it was my proud privilege to be associated with all those functions to which I was invited. I'm grateful to all of them. The college has, I've seen that the college has developed and has grown from strength to strength and is now being accepted by everyone to be the best and one of the pioneer institutions of Assam. My father retired in 1971 from the college, but I have seen that his relationship with all the teachers and the students continued even thereafter. And my father used to impart lessons to the students of the Sanskrit department and the Assamese department, even after his retirement, in my house, residential house where we used to stay. He used to impart education to the students who used to come to him. And I have seen many of the professors and the teachers coming to him for advice even after his retirement. He was all along associated with academics, and he was, according to me, a visionary He established the Pragjyotish College. He started the commerce stream in this college, and thereafter was instrumental in establishing that Guwahati Commerce College. For all these contributions of my father to the college, the teaching staff and the students appreciated, and they got a statue erected in the college premises of my father. I'm really grateful to all of them for doing that. There is one more issue that I would like to say, that so far the library of the college is concerned is also dedicated to the memory of my late father, which was inaugurated by the then Governor Alan Mishra in a function which was well attended. The very rich library of my father, I got it donated for the use of the teachers and the students of Pragjyotish College, and the same is being kept in a separate corner and being used by the students and the teachers alike. Let me thank all of you for organizing this memorial lecture every year without fail, and I believe that this effort and the endeavor would continue in future as well. I thank Principal Dr. Mohanto for looking after the college and taking keen interest in its progress and development, and he is being helped by all the teachers, for I know Dr. Chaudhary and Ranjit Das and all others have been helping and assisting him in discharging his duties effectively and meaningfully. With these words, I thank all of you for listening to me, and I believe that you are all benefited today by the illuminating lecture of the speaker, and I thank you all and wish you all the best. Stay healthy, stay safe, and let God bless you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mukundakam Sharma, for agreeing to join us on this auspicious occasion at such a short notice. Dr. Sharma is very much a part of the greater Pragjyotish College family. I thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I now call upon Dr. Nandini Sharma to offer the formal vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone present here today. I, on behalf of Pragjyotish College, would like to extend Professor Vinay Kr Srivastava, Director, Anthropological Survey of India, and was also a Professor of Anthropology, University of Delhi. We are blessed to have witnessed his speech on the topic, A Panoramic View of Pandemics. The speech was enlightening, sir, and has definitely broadened our horizon on the topic, which is very pertinent in the current times and also for the times to follow. We also have former Justice of Honorable Supreme Court of India, Mukundakam Sharma, sir, who has a close association with Pragjyotish College, as he is the son of a founder principal, late Tirthanath Sharma. Sir, thank you for your gracious presence and for your words. My sincere thanks also goes to our principal, sir, Dr. Manoj Kumar Mahanta, for supporting and encouraging us in today's webinar. Under his able guidance, together we have been able to take Pragjyotish College to new heights. Next, I would like to thank our Vice Principal Ma'am, Dr. Ranjita Dekar, who has been a constant source of encouragement and a source of inspiration for such kind of activities. I would also like to thank President PCTU, Professor Kumar Chaudhary, for arranging this webinar. I would also like to thank our IQAC coordinator, Dr. Manjit Kumar Mazumdar, and his dynamic team for the technical support. Last but not the least, I would like to thank my dear colleagues and all the participants who were present here and making the webinar a grand success. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you, Dr. Nandini Sharma. Before closing the meeting, I also wish to thank everybody, more particularly Professor Vinay Srivastava, whom we would like to have him in person in our college in future when the time is right. I, on behalf of the college fraternity, wish to extend an invitation to him. Professor Srivastava, besides being a great scholar, is a very humble person, and he will accept our invitation. I thank everybody, and I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.